The Realme X is one of the best performing smartphones in its price class and can even take on some higher priced competitors. Vivo has just launched a competitor of its own, the new S1. We've decided to compare these two smartphones to help you decide which one to buy. The review units that we have for these two smartphones are priced at almost exactly the same level. We have the Vivo S1 priced at 19,990 rupees with 6GB of RAM and 128GB of storage versus the Realme X priced at 19,999 rupees with 8GB of RAM and the same amount of storage. Let's find out which one of these two phones will be the winner. But before we go ahead, please do remember to subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon to be notified whenever we post a new video. Vivo and Realme, as well as sibling company Oppo, all now offer smartphones with attention-grabbing gradients and patterns on the rear and sides. In terms of pure aesthetic appeal, our vote goes to the Realme X just for its less distracting finish. This phone also wins out in terms of ergonomics and construction quality. The Realme X has a nice curved rear that fits comfortably in the hand. This phone is actually slightly larger than the Vivo S1 in all dimensions, but it's much easier to handle. The Vivo S1, on the other hand, is blocky with a flat back. We also noticed scuff marks and scratches on the body after just a week or so of careful use. The Realme X features a pop-up front camera, so its screen is uninterrupted, whereas the Vivo S1 has a water drop style notch. Both phones have relatively thick chins below their displays, but the Realme X still looks slicker and more modern. Both phones have AMOLED screens with the same 1080 by 2340 resolution, although the Realme X's panel is slightly larger at 6.53 inches compared to 6.38 inches for the Vivo S1. Realme offers Gorilla Glass protection, which Vivo doesn't, and of course there's no notch. Realme has outfitted its phone with a Qualcomm Snapdragon 710 SoC, while Vivo has gone with the brand new MediaTek Helio P65. These two chips have a lot in common, at least as far as CPU performance goes. The Vivo S1 pulls ahead slightly in most benchmark tests, but the Realme X isn't too far behind. However, the Realme X's GPU performance is leagues ahead of that of the Vivo S1. In terms of screen quality, both phones are quite good, but the Realme X is more engaging than the Vivo S1. Everything feels lighter and brighter with a bit more pop and better contrast. Of course, there's also the fact that it lacks a notch, which does make a difference when watching videos. Neither model has a particularly good speaker, but the Realme X did allow music to sound a little clearer and richer. The downside of not having a notch is that the pop-up front camera makes face recognition just a tiny bit slower. Both phones' in-display fingerprint sensors worked just as quickly, though the one on the Realme X is slightly higher and therefore easier to reach. The Realme X unfortunately does not support storage expansion, while the Vivo S1 has a dedicated micro SD card slot. Vivo also gives its customers FM radio, which Realme doesn't. On the other hand, the Realme X features a USB Type-C port, whereas Vivo still uses the older micro USB standard for the S1. The Vivo S1 has a 4500 mAh battery, while the Realme X has a surprisingly modest 3765 mAh one. Both have their own quick charging standards. Unsurprisingly, these two phones lasted for 16 hours 38 minutes and 14 hours 28 minutes respectively in our HD video battery loop test. In day-to-day usage, we found that we could go for roughly a day and a half before either phone needed to be recharged. Both smartphones run Android 9 Pie with their respective custom UIs on top. The Vivo S1 was on the May 2019 security patch, while the Realme X had received the June 2019 update. Vivo's FunTouch OS is much more customized than Realme's Color OS compared to stock Android. There are some aspects to FunTouch OS that we really don't think make a lot of sense, most notably the iOS-inspired Shortcut Center for quick toggles that is pulled up from the bottom of the screen. Unfortunately, both phones have plenty of preloaded bloatware, including their own app stores, and some of these apps can and will generate spammy notifications from time to time. Overall, we'll call it a tie between these two phones in terms of software and usability. There are pros and cons to both approaches. You might prefer the more modern and cleaner design of the Realme X's software, or you might prefer the more familiar feel of Vivo's. Our contenders have so far been quite similar, but when it comes to their camera features and quality, it's a different story. The Vivo S1 has 3 on its rear. a standard 16-megapixel camera with an f1.78 aperture, a secondary ultra-wide-angle one with a 120-degree field of view and f2.2 aperture, and a 2-megapixel depth sensor. The Realme X only has two cameras, but the primary 48-megapixel one uses the high-end Sony IMX586 sensor and has an f1.7 aperture, and the depth sensor has a 5-megapixel resolution. Both phones have feature-rich camera apps, though we prefer Realme's UI layout. Realme has put a 16-megapixel camera on the front of its phone, while Vivo has prioritized selfies with a 32-megapixel one. We took both phones out in order to take exactly the same shots of both of them at the same time under the same conditions. Starting with landscape shots in the daytime, we found that it was the Vivo S1 that consistently delivered better results. Details were cleaner and colors were much more distinct, while the Realme X's photo samples looked washed out, cloudy, and grainy in comparison. The Vivo S1 also has the benefit of its wide-angle camera for some compositions, though photo quality is nowhere near as good. With daytime close-ups, it was pretty much the same story. Our Realme X camera samples looked weaker with muted colors. However, the exposure balance was far better in shots with significant contrast between dark and light areas. On closer inspection, many of the Realme X's shots had much better detail in very light and dark areas, while the Vivo S1 could not reproduce that at all. The Vivo S1 offers an adjustable aperture mode, while the Realme X has a fixed portrait mode. Using these, neither phone managed perfect edge detection, but the flaws in both cases were minor. The Realme X produced a more natural-looking background blur, but we still found colors muted and details on our subject's face a bit lacking. The Vivo S1 went to the other extreme with very crisp details and bright lighting on our subject's face, but it upset the color balance of the scene and boosted colors far too much in the process. At night, the Vivo S1 and Realme X produced very different results. All of our shots taken with the Realme X seemed to have a yellowish tinge, but were far brighter with a lot more visible, especially in the distance. The Vivo S1 was more restrained with slightly less noise and a much more neutral tone, but weaker colors and black blotches in many places where its competitor managed to reveal significant amounts of detail. The Vivo S1 is better for close-ups at night where the background doesn't matter, while the Realme X would be better for shots of events or places. We preferred the selfies that we took with the Realme X for their more natural skin tones and less obviously fake beautification. The Vivo S1 really overdid skin smoothing at its default setting, and we felt that we had lost a lot of detail. We also preferred the Realme X's portrait selfies, which made us look great. The Vivo S1 loses out when it comes to video recording because of its resolution limits and lack of stabilization. Video footage definitely showed that motion is not handled well, and quality just wasn't at the same level as what we were able to record with the Realme X. Both in the daytime and at night, the Realme X came out on top. There's a bit of shakiness, but quality is far better. It's a close call between these two phones when you consider the balance of camera features and quality, but overall we have to hand it to the Realme X for the usability of its photo and video output. These two phones offer very different experiences, and they are fairly evenly matched in many cases. A lot of the choice between the two will come down to personal subjective preferences. That said, we think the Realme X edges out the Vivo S1 enough for it to win this showdown. It's more future-ready thanks to its specifications, and it has a more comfortable and usable design. Little touches such as the USB Type-C port and the use of Gorilla Glass on the front also won our approval. The Vivo S1 is by no means a bad phone, but is somewhat in the shadow of its competitor. We've seen what this company can do, and you won't be disappointed if you choose the S1 for its looks, extra rear camera, or software. Thanks for watching, and for more comparisons and reviews like this, do visit us at gadgets360.com.